statement that he provided to me at the time that we met.
Nobody's saying it was made up, just putting it in context. So I hope you didn't take it that we're saying you're fabricating things. It's just, I think he's trying to say this is what I meant when I said that. So I don't want to fall into that trap. And I can't believe that he would mean anything different than what I just pointed out to the court. So, and the other thing too, Your Honor, is, and I didn't have a chance to confirm this, but he was convicted of second-degree murder. Yeah.
Ms. Navarro?
Your Honor,
Or Ms.
for the record, it's Sherry Townsend, and I believe it's pretty clear from repeated records that he was convicted for first-degree murder for a crime committed for the benefit of a gang. I believe that was the exhibit that was submitted. I believe the court made findings related to that in its verdict.
It was committed to second. Oh, I got, yeah.
I think the sentence, as a life sentence, would have to be the first-degree benefit of a gang.
But Mr. Burrell's telling me that it was commuted to second-degree murder.
Well, his sentence was commuted, Your Honor, for sure, but the initial conviction was for murder in the first degree for a crime committed for the benefit of a gang.
All right, I understand. Okay. So the sentence certainly was commuted back on December 15th, 2020. That's correct.
Yes.
All right. And then he was unsupervised released until November 23rd, 2022. That's all accurate.
Yes.
All right. Anything else in the PSI that you would like to draw my attention to or make any additions or corrections to?
Mr. Burrell's telling me no, Your Honor.
All right. I want to, if Mr. Burrell would like to speak, I want to hear from him, but obviously, Ms. Townsend, I want to hear from you as well. I'm just trying to contemplate the order, and then we have apparently some witnesses that would like to also share their thoughts.
Your Honor, as it relates to hearing from Mr. Burrell, given that he does need to be sentenced before the application for release pending appeal could be considered, my thought is that allocution, at least on the sentence, is appropriate before moving to the next step, since the law requires he have an opportunity to allocute before a sentence is imposed.
That's certainly my preference. Mr. Applebaum, do you have any problem with that?
No.
Okay, so no more additions or corrections to the PSI. I don't know if there's any response from either Ms. Townsend or Ms. Neubauer regarding the,
You gotta go first.
I guess, items raised by the defense.
No, Your Honor.
Nothing from the PSI, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, if you're, anything Mr. Burrell would like to share?
How you doing, Your Honor?
I'm doing well, thank you, sir.
I just want to come to you. I want to thank you for even considering allowing me to stay out in the community and work and actually be a productive member of the community, you know what I mean, while this appeal is pending. In the PSI I was reading, today is the first day that I ever that I actually read the PSI, so that's why me and Applebaum, me and Paul was going back and forth as far as my understanding of it, because a lot of this stuff, like when I spoke to her, she was actually calm when I spoke to her, and she had asked me about my experiences as a child, and I explained to her that the majority of my childhood was spent in prison, and that I had spent actually the majority of my life in prison prior to the crime that I'm in front of you for today. And so in that time, a lot of things took place, a lot of traumatic experiences, you know what I mean? And even going over them with her, it was like having to relive those times and go back into those spaces mentally. And some of it was traumatic and some of it was painful. So the way that I might have conveyed those stories to her, it might have seemed as it reads on this paper, but I was actually trying to explain my life experience in a short period of time. And with that, I just want you to know, I mean, because it didn't really say too much about my desire to do positive, to do good in life, and not just for me, but as a member of my community, for my family, for my loved ones, you know what I mean, for everybody that's around me. Like, I actually want to take my life experience and make it to where somebody else could benefit from it. Not to minimize what I'm in front of you for today. Like I understand, like I understand that it's a severe crime that I'm in front of you for, and it could be imposed 60-month sentence for me to go to prison. But I'm asking you to take it and consider it in your heart, you know what I mean, to allow me to stay home while I actually pursue this appeal and actually be a productive member of my community. Like coming home after doing all that time, it wasn't easy. Like especially without a map on how to reintegrate back into society, and there's a lot of bumps in the road, and I take responsibility, you know what I mean, for every bump that I cause myself. But right now, I'm in a great space. Like I've actually been striving and doing everything in my power to do what's right, and I'm in a good space. Like I got 3 jobs that I'm working right now. And, I got mentees, I got at-risk youth that I actually identify with, that I'm actually mentoring, and try to help to make sure that they don't make the same mistakes that I made in life, or actually have to go through the same life experiences that I had to go through. I've been working at the Legal Revolution, you know what I mean, helping, trying to actually, you know what I'm saying, to get people on track of getting their records expunged, people who might have went through things a long time ago, you know what I mean, and right now with the Clean Slate Act, they're eligible to be able to have those reliefs, you know what I mean, and, as well as working at Tone Up. You know, I was working at Tone Up, lobbying, organizing, doing phone banking for the Back to the Ballot initiative and enabling more than 55,000 Minnesotans the opportunity to go out and cast a vote that previously didn't have an opportunity to do so because they had a felony on their record. And so with me, I'm trying. You know what I mean? I'm not a perfect man. I'm not a perfect human being, but I'm actually trying. And I believe that I can be a productive member of society and an asset to my community. So I'm asking you to take it in your heart to consider, to allow me to stay home and actually do right. And if you do right, and if you do that, like, you'll never see me in front of you in court again, you know what I mean? Unless I'm doing something positive in a courtroom, trying to, you know what I mean, get us to a different space. But like I said, like I'm not trying to minimize anything that she wrote down or try to, you know what I mean, assassinate her character, say that she said anything inaccurate in the pre-sentence investigation. It's just the first time that I've read it. And I know that when I was speaking to her, what state of mind, and even having to explain those things of my childhood, like where it took me, and it took me to a place where, you know, I was actually that kid. So, like, you know, I didn't want to take nothing away from her either. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to speak.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anything else you wish to share?
That'd be it.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Applebaum, anything further?
That says it all, Your Honor.
Anything further to say?
Anything beyond comments and the application
Right. We can turn to that in a
or
moment.
release thing, Judge.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Burrell. Your sincerity comes through, and I appreciate that, and appreciate your statements. I've thought long and hard about your case and the sentence and the other issues here. And I note that after the commutation of your prison sentence on the murder case in December 2020, you were released from prison and essentially granted a rare opportunity of a second chance, really a new lease on life. And you were given an opportunity to be productive, meaningful, and lead a law-abiding life. And in many respects, you've taken advantage of that unique opportunity. And you've spoken to that. I've seen the letters. I've reviewed the letters, even one I received even today. I see the individuals in the courtroom here today, people you've impacted, and that comes through loud and clear. Your work at Tone Up this past summer through Election Day. You also worked at All Square, an organization I'm quite familiar with. It's an outstanding organization. And your lawyers, in the memo I received from them, shows that you impressed them at All Square so much that they've offered you a new position, or they intend to offer you a new position. And that's to your credit. You've been working for the past few months for another innovative solutions company, serving as a mentor to at-risk youth. And that's
that's a huge credit to you. I think that speaks well of you, that you're sharing your experience to young people and talking to them about the road that you've traveled in life. You're still a young man, but you've obviously had some challenges. And I commend you for all of those efforts. And I appreciate all the individuals here who are in court today in support of Mr. Burrell. And that's certainly one side of the coin here. The other side, of course, is there's another troubling side, and that's why you're here today in front of me facing sentencing. And that is because you're going to be sentenced, or I will sentence you shortly, for the crime of possessing a loaded firearm with an extended magazine clip, which together contained more than 24 rounds of ammunition. And you were a prohibited person as a result of your prior conviction. And also a possession of drugs, a felony drug possession offense, where dozens of pills that tested positive for methamphetamine and MDMA were found in your vehicle. You know that. That's the case that's before me right now. And for unknown reasons, instead of maintaining the positive, law-abiding lifestyle that you've described and that I read in the letters that you sent me since you're released from prison, you chose this other path, and I don't fully understand that. And that path involves criminal activity that impacts and endangers public safety. And that is the case that's before me now, not the other case. And as you know, after the stipulated evidence trial, I reviewed all of the evidence, and at the end of the trial in August, I found you guilty of the 2 very serious criminal offenses, and you acknowledge that, and I hear you on that. And the first offense was possessing a loaded Glock 9mm handgun with an extended magazine as a prohibited person, and that occurred on August 29th, 2023. And you have a lifetime ban from possessing firearms as a result of the prior criminal offense. And that loaded firearm was found in the center console of the car, the vehicle you were driving, along with 24 rounds of 9mm ammunition. I also found you guilty of the felony drug possession, where you had 21 methamphetamine and 16 MDMA pills in the backpack, in the backseat of your vehicle, along with a digital scale and I guess 2 baggies of marijuana. I can't think of a single lawful reason why you would be driving around with a loaded firearm and illicit drugs in your car after being released and having your sentence commuted. But you did. The gun, the ammunition, the drugs were found in your car. You were the only one in the car when you were stopped by the police. You've shared your thoughts about that experience. I read the PSI, and I understand things can be misinterpreted, and I fully acknowledge what you told me here today about your trauma, your past trauma being in prison and trauma as a child. I didn't see a lot of either remorse or accountability for your actions for having the firearm, the ammunition, and the drugs in your car. And that's a bit disappointing. I expected a bit more. You shared some here this morning or this afternoon, and I appreciate that. I don't know I wasn't the judge. I don't know the facts regarding the 2002 shooting for which you were found guilty of, and you spent 18 years in prison for. And I understand you maintain your innocence of those charges, that you maintain that you're innocent of those charges, and you were not involved in those shootings. And I also understand from your attorneys that there's ongoing proceedings related to that case, and that will run its course. However, despite your claim of innocence and despite the commutation of your sentence for those convictions, you were in fact a prohibited person and can't possess firearms, and that's why I convicted you of that offense. And you didn't have a permit to carry the firearm either, even if that offense hadn't existed. And you certainly weren't in lawful possession of the illicit drugs. So I look at you as two sides of a coin, and I acknowledge the challenges you have faced in your life. And I've also acknowledged how you've attempted to be a role model and all these organizations that you've been working with, and how you're sharing your experiences and trying to work with young people. And that I give you a lot of credit for doing. But the two offenses before me that I have now convicted you of show that you engage in criminal activity, and that's what I found you guilty of. So that's what I have to balance. Probation, as you read in the PSI, had a fairly negative assessment of your future. I'm hopeful that probation is wrong. I'm hopeful that you have a bright future, or a future where you give back to your community, just like you described here to me this afternoon. But this is going to be up to you, with, of course, support from folks who are here in court today, and folks who probably aren't even here today who support you. But taking responsibility for your own actions, having the firearm in your car, the illicit drugs in your car, that would have been a good first step. I didn't hear that from you today. Did you want to share something?
No, I didn't want to interrupt you, but
Go ahead.
quite often people that are appealing their conviction or their case don't want to talk about the offense facts, and so that's I think where that came from, not an avoidance of responsibility.
Okay. I appreciate that.
In no way was I trying to avoid responsibility for my actions. But when I was given a PSI, I was told specifically that I didn't have to speak about the underlying case because the case was on appeal. And so I didn't speak about the case because it was on appeal. You know what I mean? But in no way was I trying to minimize or not take responsibility for my actions.
Okay, I accept you at your word. Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Yeah, that's helpful. And I'll deal with exactly what I found you guilty of, which is the firearm in your car and the illicit drugs, and that's what I'll be sentencing you on. And I appreciate your clarification, Mr. Burrell. Let me turn to the sentencing and the order in which I will sentence these will be with count one and then count two. I think the parties have agreed, and I will sentence on both counts in this case, as the statute requires. With regard to count one, Mr. Burrell, following a stipulated evidence trial, I have found you guilty as a prohibited person in possession of a firearm, and the judgment of the court is you are convicted of that offense. The court finds that a firearm was used in the commission of this offense. This is a mandatory presumptive sentence of a commitment to the Commissioner of Corrections for 60 months. Pursuant to Minnesota Statute 609.11, subdivision 8B, I have no discretion in this sentence. It's a mandatory sentence. I think we refer to it as a mandatory sentence, so there is no discretion the court can exercise in this sentence. I will impose the sentence and commit you to the Commissioner of Corrections, to the custody of the Commissioner of Corrections for 60 months, credit for 10 days that you've already served. Before any release from custody, you need to provide a DNA sample as required by law. You are prohibited from possessing firearms, ammunition, or ammunition for the remainder of your life. With regard to the fine and surcharge, I'll waive the fine and the surcharge as well as the library fee. That's with regard to count one. Your judgment of this court is you're convicted of count one. I'll turn next to count two. With regard to count two, felony fifth-degree drug possession. I previously found you guilty of that offense and found in stipulated evidence trial. You have been found guilty by this court of fifth-degree drug possession, a felony offense, and the judgment of this court is that you are convicted of that offense. I will commit you to the Commissioner of Corrections for a period of 19 months. I will stay that sentence, execution of that sentence, for a period of 3 years. I will run that sentence concurrent to count 1. So count 1 will run concurrent to count 2. No fines or fees or surcharges in that offense. Probationary conditions will be obey all laws, do not possess, transport any firearms, ammunition, or explosives, and provided DNA is required by law. No use of drugs or alcohol and subject to random testing. I adjudicate and convict on both counts pursuant to Minnesota Statute 609.035, subdivision 3. That's why I'm convicting on both counts, because of the exception that is provided in the Minnesota Code. Any questions, modifications to the sentence I've just rendered?
Your Honor, I would just note that I don't know if you pronounced 2/3 and 1/3 on the sentence. If you did, I apologize if I missed it on count 1.
All right. With regard to count 1, you would serve 2/3 of that sentence and 1/3 on conditional release, supervised release, upon completing the 2/3 sentence.
And as for count 2, Your Honor, I will defer to Mr. Burrell and Mr. Applebaum relating to whether he wants to be on probation while he's serving a prison term, or if they want to demand execution concurrent with that. I think that's really up to them.
Yeah.
I've spoken with Mr. Burrell, and he would like the court to execute the count 2 along with count 1, if I'm using the right verbiage on that, just so that they're running concurrent, Your Honor.
Okay. I think I've ordered them concurrent, but any problem with that, Ms. Townsend?
No, Your Honor, I think that if this application for the stay of appeal would, or the stay for appeal would be applicable to both counts. So I think that makes sense to me.
All right. I will then execute that sentence concurrent. So in count 2, just to be clear, again, the judgment of the court is Mr. Burrell's convicted of the defendants. My sentence will be an executed sentence of 19 months to run concurrent to count 1 with no probationary conditions. It will simply run concurrent to count 1. All right. Anything else regarding the sentencing?
I'm sorry to be a stickler, Judge, but I think since you executed that sentence, I think you probably have to say 2/3 and 1/3 on that as well. If I'm wrong, I apologize.
Any objection to me doing that, Mr. Applebaum? I think if the first sentence will be 2/3 will run longer than the first 2/3 of the 19-month, but I certainly can impose it that way.
No objection.
All right. You need to serve 2 months, 2/3 of the 19-month sentence, and 1/3 will be served on supervised release.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. Let me turn now to the application for release pending appeal that you filed, Mr. Applebaum, and I'll hear you on your motion.
Your Honor, as I indicated, and I have 3 people I'd like to talk to.
Yes, for sure.
I
Absolutely.
just want to make sure. I think this is an easy call for you, Your Honor. There were some bobbles in the road, not trying to minimize any of that, but I think the situation